Hey, this is Sam from SamBam Studios, and today I'd like to show you how I created this flamethrower attack in Blender. As you can see, it's very similar to the flamethrowers you would see in Pokemon games or pretty much stylized video games in general. And I'll show you how I created this entirely in Blender. It's much simpler than it might look, and I'll do it step by step in front of you right now. Just to give you a quick preview, this is what it looks like in the viewport when it's not shaded. So you have pretty much your flamethrower core here, which is like a sphere. There's the flamethrower mesh right here, and then you've got the impact wave here that you've seen probably in my earlier tutorials, and then there's the smoke layer and the two particles layer. And essentially today what we're going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how it's done step by step. Alright, so I opened up here a new Blender file, and the first thing that I want to do is just really quickly set up the file. In the viewport shading, I typically like to go into Madcap rather than Studio. And then I'm just going to go to my render settings here, the render properties, and then I'm going to change cycles to Eevee. And then I think it's here when if I go to color management, I'm going to go from filmic to standard, but I'm not going to do it now. I'll do it later when we're doing shading, so you can actually see the difference between the view transform from filmic to standard. Typically in standard, that's what you use for stylized effects because the colors are more saturated. But anyways, let's get this tutorial started. So first thing I'm going to do is delete the default cube. So we're going to delete this, and then we're going to add in a cylinder. This cylinder will act as the base for our flamethrower. What I'm going to do really quickly is when I add it in here, I'm just going to go and change its number of vertices from 32 to 16. I don't need it to be, I don't need it to have that many polygons. 16 is enough. By the way, if this menu disappears before you're able to change it, just press F9 and it'll come back. One thing I'll do also really quickly is just put in the screencast key so you can see what I'm doing in terms of shortcuts and everything. So what I like to do is always tag or name my objects in the scene to make sure I don't get confused. So in this case, I'll just press F2, and the cylinder, I'm going to name it Flamethrower. There we go. And then I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm just going to rotate it horizontally like this. I'm just going to scale it up really quickly like this. There we go. And then I'm just going to shape it up. So always when I begin by doing a like a VFX or any piece of art, I always like to start with the basic shapes first and then add in more details as we go along. So right now we know that a cylinder will act as the base shape of our flamethrower. I also know that the beginning of the flamethrower is smaller than the end of it. So I'm going to go into face mode, take the beginning and scale it down like this. And then what I'm going to do here for the end of the flamethrower is I'm going to delete the face, go into edge selection mode, extrude and scale down, move it up. There we go. I want to add in another loop cut here. There we go. Essentially, I'm just giving it that more of a beveled or rounded end here. And then what I like to do is when I select the edges at the end here, rather than just pressing F to close it, I'd rather have it just a bit more polygon so that when I do the displacement later on to create the illusion of fire, I don't want it to look weird. I want to keep like quad shaped polygons. So I'm going to do Control F to open up this menu here for faces, and then select grid fill. And there we go. So now we have like a grid in this case, rather than just a simple face. So I'm gonna just look at it from the side. Yep, this looks good to me. I might just select this, just bring it back just a little bit, bring this back just a little bit, scale it up. Just tiny little touches, nothing too important. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to delete the face and then go back into edge selection mode here. Extrude and scale down, Control F, grid fill, and I'm good with that. I don't need to add any more polygons here. And then, but what I do want to do though, because I want more polygons along the length of that flamethrower, because essentially you want the displacement to be as evenly placed as possible. So I'm just going to do Control R to add in more loop cuts. I'm just eyeballing it. There isn't any exact number of loop cuts to put in, but you want pretty much see all these polygons here look evenly shaped. This is sort of what you want to aim for. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit edit mode, and I'm going to go into the modifier stack for the flamethrower, and we're going to add in a displace modifier. So I'm going to go into the form, and then go here to displace, and then I'm going to go to press on new because I want to use a texture map to to displace the object. So I'm going to press new. I'm just going to name it. It's always good. Always name your texture files or your objects or anything, because whenever you'll be working with a larger scene, you don't want to get confused. So anyway, so I'm gonna call this the flamethrower for that texture. Perfect. And if I press here, it brings me directly to the texture tab. Right now by default it's set to image or movie. For type, I like to typically use Voronoi. There we go. So it looks weird at first. It's normal. No worries about that. There's a couple of settings that we have to fix first. I'm just going to right click and go to shade smooth. Obviously this does not look good. First thing we want to do, one of the reasons why this does not look good is because it's very low resolution. As you can see, there just is not enough polygons on the flamethrower object here. So what I'm going to do is just go back to the modifier tab, and I'm going to add a subdivision. If we go to generate subdivision surface modifier, but I don't want to add it after the displace modifier. I want to add it before, because what this does, there we go. What this does is it provides more polygons before the displace modifier is applied, which is what you want. Because if you put it afterwards, it keeps the low resolution and just smooths it out. But we don't want to smooth out our low resolution. We want to provide more polygons and then displace the higher number of polygons. By default, they put level the viewport levels to 1. 2 is better. Obviously, it still looks like crap right now, but we're going to fix this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to my texture properties. And then what I'm going to do is just increase the size here of the Voronoi. So there you go. Already it's looking a little bit better. I'm going to right click, go to shade smooth. And already you can see a little bit the similarity with the first completed flamethrower that I showed you. We're not quite there, but it's getting better. What I want to do now is go back to my modifiers tab. I'm going to go to displace, and then with the strength I can, just like the name states, it's the strength, the amplitude, or the intensity of the displace modifier. I want to reduce it a little bit. It doesn't need to be too strong. Yeah, this looks good for me right now. Obviously, you're never done, right? You're always going to go back and make some modifications, but for now, it's good enough. Now, what I want is I want to animate this displacement. Right now it's currently static. So what do I do for this? Is if you go to the displace modifier here, coordinates, it's currently set to local. You want to switch that to object. And what this does is you can use another object in the scene to control the coordinates of your displace. What we typically do is use an empty object, because an empty object typically is, well, it's never seen in the final render. So it's only used as, for function. It's never used to be seen during a render. So Shift A, go to empty, plane axis is fine. It's a little small. So I'm going to right click, adjust empty display size, so we can just make it bigger. There we go. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm also going to name it F2 EMP Flamethrower. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is go back, select my flamethrower object. Under object is the eye picker tool. The eyedropper tool. I'm going to click it and then select the empty. Now that the empty is currently selected as the object, you'll notice if I move it, the displace moves with it. See? So in this case, what I can do here, I can move the displacement however I want on whatever axis. I can rotate it, or I can also scale it and affect it that way. In our case, the only thing we want to do is just move it forward, because the flamethrower will be shot from here, from this point outwards. So the flamethrower is moving outwards like this. So we're just going to create a quick animated or automated animation for this empty here. So we're going to select the empty, go to the item, properties here, and in location X, we're going to click here and type in the code line hashtag frame / and we're going to put in a number. I'm going to try 24. It's way too slow. If you want a more speed, put in a lower number. If you want a higher speed, you put a larger number. In our case, it's a little too slow, so let me try 6. Okay, it's a little bit faster, but not quite. Let me just double the speed, going from 6 to 3. Okay, now we're talking. Okay, now it's a little bit better. Okay, because I don't want it to be too intense, but this is good. This is fast enough for me right now. So what I want to do is, there's a problem that I'm seeing here. The levels of displacement is equal from the beginning to end. And what I mean by this is, it's all, I don't want the beginning to be as, I don't want the strength of the displacement to be as strong in the beginning than the end of the flamethrower. And I'll actually visualize what I mean by this. It'll make it simpler. So I'll just select the flamethrower object here. I'm going to go to object properties, the data properties here, in vertex group. I'm going to add in a new group. I'm just going to name it flamethrower displace. There you go. And then with this vertex group selected, very important, keep it selected, go into your weight paint mode, and then select gradient. And what this does, there we go. It creates a gradient map from blue to red. Red has a value of 1, blue has a value of 0. And what we're doing with this vertex group, we're assigning strength values to our flamethrower object. And we're telling Blender essentially, this value has 1, this value has 0, and then there's a gradient in between, which is values that range between 0 to 1. And what we're going to do with this data property is, we're going to go into our displace modifier, go into vertex group, and select flamethrower displace. And as you can see, if I just go back to object mode, the displace here is set to 1, but as we go further along to the beginning, there's less amplitude for the displace modifier. So just to show it to you, I'm going to delete it. See how it's all now set even? But if I go back to flamethrower displace object group, there we go. It's a little bit better. I think what I'm going to do is just, with the green, I'm just going to push it forward a little bit more like this. There we go. That's better. Okay, now that looks way better. So that's good. For now, I'm going to keep the flamethrower as is. And what I'd like to do is add in the next step to our object. So we're going to add in the flamethrower core. So for this is pretty much one of the simplest pieces of this art piece. So we're going to go to mesh, add a UV sphere, take this UV sphere, and we're going to move it to the beginning like this. I'm going to scale it down maybe just a little bit like this. Shade smooth. There we go. And as you can see here, we have the core. This is what sort of emits the flamethrower. The only problem that I have, though, it's currently static. I want it to be animated as well. So how do we do that? It doesn't matter at whichever frame we put this on, but we're gonna press K and add in a scale keyframe. We just need to add one. We don't need it to be animated. And what we're going to do in this case is, first I'm just going to save this here. Okay, so the file is now saved. And what I want to do is, I want to go into my timeline tab here. Press Control Tab to go into the graph editor. And if I go to, see here, because I put in a keyframe for scale, I have a keyframe for Z scale on the Z axis, on the Y axis, and the X axis. And I'm going to start off with the X axis. I'm going to add in a modifier here. I'm going to put in the noise modifier, and I'm just going to press on normalize so we can just see what it looks like. And look at what it does. It just automatically sets a noise graph here to automatically animate the sphere here, but it's a little too erratic for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the strength to maybe 0.6 and the scale maybe to 1.5. What happens is if I move the scale, see, it slows it down a little bit, but or maybe even 2, and strength maybe to 0.3. I don't want it to be too erratic. And then what we're going to do, because now it's just doing it on the x-axis, we want this on all axes. What I'm going to do is just going to press pause. I'm going to go here to copy F modifiers. I'm going to go to the y-axis, paste it. Go to the z-axis, and paste it again. And now we have uniform scale animation for the core. And that's it. That's all I want. You can play obviously with the scale and strength settings to see what you prefer. If you want it to be stronger or weaker or faster or bigger, it's up to you. But typically that's how you create automated scale, noise animation for the Flamethrower core. Perfect. And now what we're going to do as well, we're just going to quickly name it. So we're going to press Flamethrower core. There we go. Now, before we move forward, what I want to do is start playing a little bit with the shading of these items before we get to the other elements. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to we're going to split this up, and here we're going to go to the shader editor. There we go. And what we're going to do, we can also go to the render settings here. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to select the Flamethrower object, and then I'm going to give it a material here. And what we're going to play with is the emission shaders. So let's see here. We're going to remove the principal BSDF, put in the emission, connect it to the material output. There we go. And now what I want to do to create this sort of effect of flames being pushed forward is use a wave modifier. So let's add a wave texture. A wave texture, not a wave modifier. Okay. Then we're going to connect it to the emission, and then we're also going to add in a color ramp in between them, like so. And then we're going to press Ctrl+T to automatically connect to it a texture coordinate and mapping nodes. If you do Ctrl+T and it doesn't work, just make sure your Node Wrangler add-on is enabled. For that, go to Edit, Preferences, and Add-ons. Go to the search, type in Node Wrangler, and make sure that that's enabled. Once it's enabled, do Ctrl+T, and then your texture coordinate and mapping node will appear. Perfect. So what we can do now with the wave texture is play with the phase offset, and it pushes it forward, which is good. That's what we want. But this doesn't look like flames at all. So what we're going to do first is I'm just going to play with the settings there of the color ramp here. There we go. Typically the colors we have for fire ranges between, red and yellow. So we're going to go with red here. And then yellow here. Go from black to yellow. We can add in more colors later, but right now we're just playing with the basics. And this is where I get to show you what I meant earlier on in the video when we're switching with the color management here. So currently we have filmic, but if you go to standard, the colors are more saturated. So one more time, from standard to filmic, from filmic to standard. Filmic works really well if you want to do realistic renders, but if you go to standard, your colors will pop a lot more, which typically works better for stylized effects, which is what we're doing right now. So this is what we got here. So what I want to do now is, first of all, I want to distort the waves here, and we can play with the distortion here, but it's not exactly what I want to do, although this works. Typically what I like to do is I'll play with the scale value here for the mapping node. So I'll press Shift A and add in a Voronoi texture. Press Ctrl+T to give it its own texture coordinate and mapping nodes. we're going to connect the distance, let me just zoom in here, distance socket to a color ramp. And the color ramp connects to the scale value here. Now it's going to look weird at first. It's normal. What we're going to do first of all with the color ramp here of the Voronoi texture, we're just going to reverse the black and the white. And then when it comes to black, I'm just going to push it all the way up here. So you'll see if I just put it all the way up to white, there's no distortion. But if I take that white slider and just slightly give it a lower value, like we're going from 1 to 0.948, we're getting, as you can see here, some sort of distortion. Okay, and then what we're going to do, let's take a look at it here. We can maybe add in a bit of a, there we go, something along these lines. So this is where we start playing with the colors. And then this is pushed forward, but now what we want to do is we want the fire to be pushed outwards as well. So we're going to animate the phase offset. So we're going to go to the phase offset, press hashtag frame / I don't know, let's try 6 like we did before. No, it's being pushed in the wrong direction. So rather than 6, we're going to do -6, but it's way too slow. So let's try -1. Okay, it's being pushed forward, but it's not quite what I'm looking for in terms of speed. Let's first play with the scale maybe. So if we push the scale forward. Okay, there we go. Now it looks a little bit more like fire, you see? And now what I want to do is before we start, adjusting and playing, I'm going to press just pause really quickly. And I want to give it just a tiny bit of a twist. For the flamethrower here. So if I go to add modifier, I go to the form, simple deform, and yeah, on the twist x-axis, if you play with the angle, you'll see, I'll just disable it for a moment so you can see the difference. This is when it's straight, and this is when we give it a twist on the x-axis. See, it's like the fire sort of swirling around, which is a pretty cool effect. A nice little touch here, just like that. Okay, this is nice. Now what I could do, I could come here and play with the Voronoi scale. If I give it more scale, there's more distortion, there's more lines. This is why I'm using this setup rather than just playing with a distortion here, because this distortion is just there's just one slider for it. I can't really control it the way I can control it here. If I play, for example, with the x-axis, see, I can play with the way the fire looks, which is kind of cool. Yes, maybe on the z-axis. I kind of like that, to be honest. If I play with this slider here, if I push this forward here, this looks good. If I play with scale, okay. No. When I even start animating it, doesn't quite look the same. I'm going to put this back to 1. And so it's up to you as well. You get to choose what you prefer. But I'm going to go back to regular settings like this. This looks much better. Already we're getting fire being pushed out. But we're not done yet. I'm just going to actually add another effect to my flamethrower. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go with a mix shader in the tab here. So I'm going to go mix shader, connect it here. I'm going to add another, I'm duplicating here the emission shader from here with Shift D. I'm going to connect it here. And then what I want is create some sort of glow coming out of that, or like more precisely a rim light. We're gonna get to the glow later, but more of a rim light for the flamethrower. And to do that, we're gonna use a layer weight node, because that's what the layer weight node does. If you play with it, I'll show you right now. It creates a rim light effect around the object based on the object's geometry. So we have the layer weight node. We're gonna take facing, connect it to a color ramp node. Just like that, and then connect it to the factor socket, and the factor socket's going to decide pretty much here. What's black is going to be what's seen here, and what's white is what's going to be seen at the bottom shader here. And then so I'm gonna play with it here just like that. And I'm gonna maybe put this to like a fiery orange or red like this. Now I get to play with it like here, but it's not really gonna work until we start adding the glow, and that's what I'm gonna do right now. So I'm gonna go from shader here and go to compositor, and then I'm gonna go here in this viewport, and I'm gonna click always. So when you click here for the viewport shading settings in the compositor, click in always. So whatever you put here in the compositor is going to be actually seen and shown in the viewport. And then so here in the compositor, I'm going to press on use nodes. It'll activate the nodes. In between, it's very simple. In between these two nodes, I'm just going to add in a glare node. In between. Okay. And now nothing is shown, and that's because our emissions are set to 1. Let's boost up the strength a little more. So we're going to start with the emission strength of the flames, of the fire. If I'm going to put this to 1.5. And the glow here, I'm going to put this to maybe 3. Okay. Now let's go back to the compositor tab, and we're going to change it from streaks to bloom. Or fog glow. No, I think I'll go with bloom instead. And then I'm going to go to highlights. We can play with the thresholds. No, we can keep threshold to 1. We can play here with this. You can play with the settings, see what you prefer. Strength, we currently set to 1. If I put 3, it goes even more. It's up to you. I think 1 is enough. I don't need to go more than 1. And if I press play, see, you got yourself a flamethrower. Pretty much already complete. I just want to maybe give it a bit more of that fire. Like this. Maybe set from linear to ease. There we go. Yeah, just boost it up a little more. I think 6 is good. There we go. Looks a lot hotter like this. Perfect. And now what we're going to do really quickly for the flamethrower core, it's the easiest shading. We're just going to give it a new material here. We're going to delete the principled BSDF. We're just going to name this flamethrower core. We're just going to add in an emission shader. Like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in a layer weight node. Whoops. Layer weight, just like that. Facing into a color ramp. Exactly what we've done before. Connect it here. And then we're just going to play with the colors. So black, yeah, it could be something like red. And then white can be something like a light orange. Or maybe what if you reverse these colors? There we go. That's a little bit better. Yeah, maybe this could be something a little bit more lighter like this. And in between that and the red could be something orange. Change this to ease maybe. There we go. Something along these lines. And what's cool about the layer weight node is whatever angle you look at it from, it's always active. Because again, it acts like a rim light from the, there we go, like this. I'm just going to put it more orange. Like this. If I remove this. That is better. If we play with the strength, maybe 2.4. Something along these lines. Perfect. Now we got ourselves most of the flamethrower. Now what we want to do is we want to add more details. The first thing that I want to do, one of my favorite details, is what I like to call the shockwave, or what looks like a shockwave essentially. And that's like the air around the core that's being distorted because of the power of that energy. So what we're going to do here is we're going to press pause for a moment, go back to viewport shader settings, and we're going to add in a circle. Circle can be set to 16. Doesn't need to be 32. I'm just going to isolate it by pressing /, and I'm going to go into edit mode, edge view. There we go. Just extrude in some faces, so ES, and then select all of it, and then just make it a little larger. I'm gonna go back into regular view so I can double check the proportionate sizes. Go into edit mode, and we're gonna, there we go, just rotate it like this, and we can put this around the Shockwave. We're gonna just scale it up a little more like this, and that's perfect. Now, of course, if you go to render view, we're not seeing anything. We're gonna have to create for it a shader. But before we do a shader, it's important that we play with the UV settings of that Shockwave. So I'm just gonna quickly name it into Shockwave. There we go. We're gonna go to UV editing really quickly. Just isolate it, it'll be just easier to deal with. Okay, we're gonna add 3 seams on the outer edge, on the inner edge, and then one right down the middle that connects both edges. We're gonna press A. Actually, sorry. There we go. This here, we're gonna press U first, and then mark seam. There we go. Now that the seams are marked, we're gonna press A, U, U again, and then it's unwrapped naturally. What I like to do in a case like this is I have to find, first of all, the seams. Whoops. I have to find the seam where the separation will occur. So what I could do here, I can press on this button here that says UV sync selection. So when you select, let's say for example, I go into vertex mode. If I select one vertex here, it'll also tell me which one it is in the UV map, which is really, really interesting. So this is it here. So I'm gonna, once I figure it out, I'm gonna remove, uncheck, press A, and then there we go. I'm just gonna move it up like this. Perfect. Now what I want to do is very simple. For this effect to work is, because I'm going to use the wave texture in the shader settings, and I need to pretty much turn this circular UV map into a square one, because when I'm going to use the texture, the wave texture, I want the waves, the lines from the wave texture to go around the circle and not go across. And for that to happen, I need to have my UV maps square. I actually made a video about this. I'll have it in the description to perfectly elaborate and explain what I mean by that. So what I'm going to do is go to edge selection, go here, select this one right here, the one that's disconnected, and then let's go align horizontally. Perfect. Then take this one, connect it to it here, align vertically, this one align vertically as well, and then this one align horizontally. Now I have a perfectly squarish straight shape. I'm going to go to face selection, select it, and then select all the rest. Right click, and let's see here, follow active quads. And all of a sudden, there you go. They're all squarish shaped. So I'm going to take this here, put it here. I set it up here at the 2D cursor, because now what I can do is, let's go here to pivot. We're going to choose 2D cursor. Now when I scale, it's from the 2D cursor, so like this. Now I'm going to select this edge right here, and I want to cover all of it. I'm just going to go to edge selection, select this edge, and now I'm going to cover it up just like this. Perfect. Now I got myself a square shaped UV map that'll help me create the shockwave effect with the wave texture node. So let me show you. Let's go back to our layout here. We're going to create a new material. We're going to name this shockwave. There we go. I actually just figured out here it's still named material. I'm going to just name it Flamethrower. Perfect. Okay, let's go back to our shockwave and then to the shockwave material. What we're going to do is delete the principal BSDF as always. We're never going to use the principal BSDF in this project. I'm going to add in a mix shader node. There we go. Connect it to the material output. And then I'm going to add 2 other nodes, the transparent and emission nodes. There we go. We're going to put the transparent at the top, shader here, and emission just down below. Off the bat, you're gonna realize it's very noisy. I'll show you how to fix this. It's this annoying thing in Blender. When you're in the shading tab, press N, just like this, to open up the sidebar settings. Go to Options, and then Render Method, change it from dithered to blended. And there we go. The grain is removed. Now if I go full opaque to full transparency, it's smooth. It's no longer grainy. So what I want to do now is I'm going to add in a wave texture, connect it to a color ramp node. The color ramp node will go to the factor socket of the mix shader. And then I click on the wave texture, Control+T, make sure to have the Node Wrangler add-on. And then as you can see here, we have a texture coordinate and mapping node connected to our wave texture. Okay, I'm gonna do Control-Shift-Click on the color ramp to isolate the view just really quickly to show you what I meant with the UV editing. Okay, so if I scale it down, this is really weird. Why is it doing that? Dans X. If I go UV, probably. Okay, so if I go to UV, it works perfectly fine. It's exactly what I want. But for some reason, if I go to generated, it looks extremely weird. But anyways, we want to avoid this weirdness. Just make sure, essentially here's what you want to do. In texture coordinate, use UV coordinates into your mapping node. Because as you can see here, when I play with the phase offset, the rings move outwards, like a shockwave. Except that now we need to shape up our shockwaves to make them look a little bit more interesting. So first what we're going to do is we're going to increase the black value of the color ramp a little more like this. Maybe scale it down a little more like this. Now when we play with the phase offset, going backwards, you can see it feels like, there you go, like a shockwave being emitted out. And now if I plug back the mix shader into the material preview, as you can see here, it feels like a shockwave is coming out. So we want to shape up the shockwave, like I said, for it to look a little bit more interesting. So what we're going to do with this is I'm going to do Shift-A, search. We're going to add in a noise texture, Control+T, and we're going to connect its color into a color ramp. And then plug the color ramp into scale. Okay, so see off the bat, you can see it's distorting if I just play with the phase offset, see it's already creating a distortion with the waves, which is cool, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for. If I play X, Y, or Z, it's not really looking like I want it to look. So I'm gonna select UV, put it in the mapping node, and there we go. Now it's going to look like how we want it to look. So I'm not going to scale it on the x-axis. I'm going to scale it on the, there we go, on the y-axis. And see what it's creating? This is what I'm looking for. And then if I play with the x-axis, I'm going to scale it up. Play with the black value here of the black slider of the color ramp. And then if I play with the wave offset, okay, this is better. This is a bit more what I'm looking for. If I play a bit more here with the y-axis or the x-axis. Okay. There we go. I'm going to play with the scale here of the waves texture node. There we go. And now if I play with the phase offset, see, this looks a little bit more stylized in that case. And you can, again, you choose how you want it to look. Make sure to play with the settings of the noise texture, the wave texture, and the color ramp to get the effect that you want, that you want in that case. So like this is fine. Maybe go from linear to ease to make it a tiny bit smoother. Okay. Okay, this is not so bad. What I can do is go to the phase offset again, create an automated animation. So hashtag frame / let's try -6. That's way too slow. -1. Okay, way too fast. -2. Okay, a little bit better, but it's just weird. It looks really, really weird, so I'm going to play with the scale settings here. Okay, this is a little bit better. But I'm going to control the speed. It's a little too linear, so what I want to do here is add in a loop cut. And another one. Is it going to do anything? Typically it's supposed to. See what it does, because with the loop cuts you can sort of manipulate. There we go. No, this is not what I want. If I scale it up, let's scale this up a little bit more like this. Okay. And what if I give it a subdivision modifier? Okay, and now what I want, as you can see, what's annoying here is that there's like this very sharp cutoff at right here at the end of the circle. Because again, if we go to solid view, it ends exactly on the edge of the geometry. It doesn't look really good. So what we're going to do in this case is I'm going to add a gradient transparency here. So what we could do is just select the node setup that we just created, add a mix color node, and on the B here, what we're going to do is we're going to edit a gradient texture, connect it to a color ramp, and then Control+T right here. Perfect. We're going to connect UV to mapping, connect it right here. And we're going to go from mix to multiply. And what I'm doing here is, there we go. I'm just going to reverse the black and white. Black means this is going to be not visible. It's going to be transparent. And what's going to be white is what we're going to see. And what I'm trying to do is create some sort of cutoff. Let's see if this works. There we go. If I put factor to 1, it's a little smoother now, the way it ends. So, except that maybe if I put it to ease. So, okay. So see, this is as if I didn't have the gradient. This is when I have it. It smooths it out. It feathers out the edge of transparency a little bit. There we go. And now, rather than it being white, maybe what we could do is give it a bit of a, because it's fire, so maybe a little bit more orangey. We could reduce the value a little bit. We don't want it to be too visible. So with the emission shader here, I'm just playing with the colors. Sometimes you want some details to be present, but not too visible. And that's what we have right here. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add in smoke. Because since this is a flamethrower, some smoke's going to be thrown out as well. Very simple. Shift A, add a cylinder. Same as before. We're just going to go to solid view. 16 vertices is good enough. We're just going to name it smoke. Go to edit mode, rotate it on the y-axis to 90, and we're going to scale it up. Scale it up on the x-axis like this. There we go, just like that. Just like that. I'm going to delete the face, delete the face here. So I deleted both faces on each edge. They won't be necessary. And I don't even need to add in more geometry, more loop cuts. It's not even necessary because we just need just regular geometry here. We're just going to use the cylinder as a guide or as a vehicle for the smoke, because the smoke's going to be done just in the shading editor. So now that this is done, very simple. Just right click, shade smooth. We're going to go back to render view. Now, because there's no material, it just hides, it just hides the flamethrower. But what we're going to do is we're going to click on it on the smoke. We're going to give it a new material and name it smoke. There we go. Again, delete the principled BSDF. We need some transparency, so we're going to put in the mix shader node. Connect it to the material output. We're going to add in a transparent and emission. There we go. By default, it's going to go back to each new material will be set to the noisy transparency. So again, go in the shader editor, N, in the options tab, go from the render method, go from dithered to blended. And there we go. We're back to something smoother. There we go. Okay. So let's see here. We want long streaks. So maybe we can go again with a wave texture. Let's try that. Wave texture, Control+T to give it a texture coordinate mapping node. Connect its color socket to a color ramp, and then the color ramp connected directly to the mix shader. Okay. So on the x-axis, it's not going to look good. Maybe let's try y-axis. Not better. Maybe z-axis. No. This doesn't look really good. Instead of band, let's go for rings maybe. No, that's not going to change anything. If I change it to UV. Okay, there we go. So, if I change the texture coordinates from generated to UV instead, and then set it to bands and X on the wave texture, this is what I get. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the black slider and scale it down like this. And these white streaks are going to end up becoming the smoke effect. So what we're going to do, first of all, is if we go to the color ramp here, we're going to take the white. And because we don't want the smoke to be too visible, so we're going to reduce it to a lighter gray. Just like that. And then I think if we play with the distortion here, we could get like a smoky effect. Let me just see here if I isolate it. Okay, maybe if I just feel like making this a little smaller. Okay, if I play with the phase offset, not as much, but if I make it move forward. Oh, if I make it move forward on the y-axis, the smoke will be moving forward. That's nice. So if I give it, again, for hashtag frame / if I do 24, let's say. Okay, it's moving backwards like a vacuum. So let's do -24. It's a little bit fast. Let me just remove it here. No, I want the smoke to be a little slower. So let's say 72. 72. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay. And I don't want the smoke to be white. I want it to be a bit of a darker brown, maybe. There we go. Something like this. Now, obviously, it's becoming less visible the darker you make it. But again, that's sort of the point. Like before, you don't want it to be too visible. Now it's more orange. Okay, like this. Maybe if I increase the gray value here just a little bit like this. There we go. Now we got the smoke coming out. But same as before, see, this looks ugly, the cutoff here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the mix color node along with the gradient node setup technique that we've done before to feather out the edges here. So let's pause this. Let's move this back a little bit. Add in the mix color here. Add in a gradient texture node. Control+T. Let's let's set it to UV. No, I don't think we need to set it to UV this time. We can keep generated. Connect the gradient texture to a color ramp. Color to be here. Let's set this to multiply factor all the way up to 1. Okay. If I shift control click to view the to view it here. Okay, we want the black to be on the other side like this, and then ease it up. There we go, just like that. Okay, what do we get then if I go back here? See, now the smoke feathers out, which is sort of what we want. And then if I just make it more visible or less visible, that's up to you. If you want your smoke to be more visible, it's up to you. There's really no problem with that at all. And now the only thing that's left is to add in the particles effect. So it's always important. There's this thing in art and design called BMS, big, medium, small. And we've kind of dealt with it right now. So we have the big details are the flamethrower. I would even argue to some degree the core as well, because it's the most visible. We have the medium with the smoke and the impact wave. Now we want to add in smaller levels of details, and that's going to be with the particles that we're going to add in right now. So just before I do that really quickly in the Shockwave, I'm just going to make the color here a little bit lighter, and then reduce its transparency a little bit. There we go. That's better, because it was the color bothered me before. And now what I'm going to do, it's very simple. Take the smoke geometry, duplicate it, so go to edit mode, Alt S to scale it on its normals, and we're going to make it a little bit bigger. And there we go, because we need the same kind of geometry. That doesn't change. We're just going to change the name from smoke.001 to particles. There we go. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to, if you go back to render mode, is now we have 2 layers of smoke, because it also copied the smoke material, which we don't want. So we're going to press on X here, because we don't need it. And then what we're going to do is under particles, we're going to create a new material and name it particles. Delete the principal BSDF, and as always we need transparency, so that means we need a mix shader node alongside a transparent and emission node. So mix shader, connect it to the material output, and then we're going to add in a transparent and an emission node. There we go. Same as always, we got the grainy look, transparency again. No worries, go back to your shader tab, press Enter for the settings options, the side panel to open up. Go to options, render method, change from dithered to blended. And now we're back to something smoother. And now we got to shape up our particles. Very simple. When it comes to particles, I like to go with the Voronoi texture. It just does it best, I think. So we're going to add in a Voronoi texture, Control+T to add in a texture coordinate and mapping nodes as always. And then we're going to connect its distance into a color ramp. There we go. And connect the color ramp to the mix shader. What we're going to do is we're going to flip the black and the white sliders of the color ramp. And now you can see it's creating these oval shaped circles here. And we're going to use that as the basis for our particles. So what we're going to do is we're going to play with the scale values. If I scale it up just like that a little bit. Okay, we got ourselves some white particles. I like the fact that they're oval shaped, because it sort of mimics motion blur. Like, you know, if they're not too circular, but let's say you really want them to be circular, you can play with the mapping scale values. And if you scale it, you know, if you scale it down, you know, you can scale them down until they really look like, or scale it up in this case for them to look like perfect circles, or you could just even make them more stretchy. Yeah, that's what you're looking for. But in our case, I like the default settings because it's not perfectly circle, but it's not too stretchy either. Now what we want to do is we want to give them color. It's very important. So we're going to go to the emission here, and we're going to give him a color, maybe something like orange, and we're going to boost up the strength. So maybe to something like 6, for its emission. Okay, let me just see what we got so far. So, okay, well, first of all, they're static. We need them to move. So what we're going to do is, if we go to our mapping here, yeah, we're going to have to play with, as you can see here, the x-axis of the mapping node. But we have to make them move backwards for them to move forwards in our end in the viewport settings. So in the x-axis of the location here of the mapping node, we're going to type in hashtag frame / -24 maybe. That's a little too fast. We want it to be a little slower. So I'm thinking 96 maybe. Let's see how this looks. I'd rather the background to be a little darker, so I'm just going to go to the shader from object to world, and we're just going to reduce the strength a little bit. Just a little bit. It makes it easier to see. Go back to object. If I go to Eevee and if I go to render properties under Eevee here, sampling viewport and uncheck temporal reprojection, I can see a bit better. It's a little weird the way it's moving. Let me see here what I could do. No, X is fine. Okay, I think there's also just too many of them. I'd rather them be just a little more. Okay, 96 still feels maybe a little fast as well. So maybe I'll go crazy. I'll go for something like, I don't know, divided by -256. That's a little slow. Maybe like -128. Okay. It's like they're flickering, which I don't like a lot. So you know what? Rather than generated, let me just delete the driver we put in. Let's put this back to 0. Rather than using generated, I'll go with UV instead. Oh, and then if I play with the, I think it's Y. Yeah, Y. So let's, on the Y-axis here, hashtag frame / minus, let's say 128 like we did before. Okay, that's better. Yeah, I don't know why under generated it looked incredibly weird, but now it's moving without flickering, which is sort of way more at least what I want. I'm going to just scale them down a little more. There we go, and all of a sudden when I scale them down, the 128 becomes a little too fast. So let's go to like 5112. Sorry, 512. It's a little too slow. So maybe let's go back to maybe -256. Okay. That's a little bit better. Alright, so this is now a fully fledged stylized flamethrower in Blender. We've got all the main ingredients that compose it. We have the flamethrower core, the flamethrower itself, the particles, the shockwave, the smoke. All of it is in here. Of course, feel free to modify it in any way, shape, or form you want it for your own project. You can make it bigger, smaller, add more details. It's all up to you. But as for me, I am done for today. But if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll get to them as fast as I can. Bye-bye.